Our next speaker is Ms. Ratna Osman.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and greetings of peace to everyone in this room. Thank you, Gail, for that nice introduction, and my fellow speaker and everyone. I've been entrusted to talk on, to share actually the work of sisters in Islam when it comes to religious extremism, and how when we are faced with conflict, do we counter really using religious argument. So of course sisters in Islam work is very much looking into the rights of Muslim women, but it is also looking at, as a whole, the basic need of understanding on Islam that is beautiful, Islam that is peaceful, Islam that acknowledge human dignity, karama, and how as I go on with my hopefully 12 minutes presentation, we look at the interpretation of Islam in today's society. Has actually, if somebody reading about Islam and then actually meeting a Muslim society today, it's very difficult to engage both what they read about the beautiful Islam and the reality in the society. Yeah? I hope I will do justice within the 12 minutes to talk on something quite heavy. Yes. But, okay, so I'll just begin with like I said, Islam came into 7th century Arabia when the situation, when the basic rights of human are actually questionable. Yeah, especially half of the population, which is the women, and then also there was slavery. So when Islam came, you have all sorts of issues of human rights abused, yeah, that was sort of saved by the revelation from God. And women in 7th century Arabia, unheard of having property. And this is not just restricted to 7th century Arabia, it's also in medieval Europe, it's everywhere, that women do not inherit, women cannot have a name to herself, that she is to follow the husband's, will, and upon death of husband, then she's transferred to within the tribal agreement to whom she will go. So all these ended when Islam came. Islam gave women the right to property, unheard of in 7th century Arabia. Yeah? In fact, when the revelation for inheritance came in the Quran, some of the Prophet's companions said, why should we give to those who don't go out and ride horses? I mean, we protect them. Why is it that they inherit property? Yeah? So all these basic issues in today's society, women can own property. Today's 21st century, it's like, why, it's no issue at all. Yeah, but it was an issue back then, and how bit by bit Islam eradicates such injustice. Next. And that's why I say, if somebody read, how beautiful Islam is and all that, but if, let's say, they come to 21st century today, yeah, to Malaysia, and then they started reading news about forced marriage, about a child, 10 years old, being married to somebody who's 40 years old. What is this? Is this Islam? It's being practiced under the name of Islam. Next. Again, news of a rapist, just recently, a rapist who raped a 40-year-old who befriended on Facebook a girl who's 12 years old, and then 6 months later raped her, and now, of course, the criminal court is going on. But, in order to escape such penalty, to escape the conviction, he actually married the girl, and it was allowed, within the Sharia court. The Sharia court allowed it. Next. And then, suddenly you have all these cases coming up of children getting married, because in Malaysia, premarital HIV screening is compulsory for Muslims. So you have girls as below 10 years old going for HIV testing for marriage, and you have a girl who's barely 13 or 14 getting married to her religious teacher. So you have all this, and then it's done by the name of Islam. And next. And then, of course, some of our work on polygamy itself, Mr. Turkan mentioned about, all Muslim men should have 4 wives. Is that it? No, of course it's not. But in Malaysia, it is legal for Muslim families, for Muslim men to have 4 wives. And these are some of the findings of Sisters in Islam. So the current scenario next. So when we talk about the beauty of Islam, Malaysia was actually at the right track, because we had one of the best law for very progressive, when it comes to religious context, very, very progressive, very good, looking at the rights of Muslim men and also Muslim women. But unfortunately, 10 years and after that, a lot of amendments to the law that has reversed such gains. And then you can see the trends of the law reform in Malaysia as a glance here on how the civil law is moving towards equality for spouses, and unfortunately not so much for the Islamic law, especially when it comes to Muslim women's rights, because, regressive amendments, good law 1984, then bad amendments 1984, another series of bad amendments in 2005, and other issues. Next. So when we talk about this, and this is not particularly happening in Malaysia. It's of course all over the world, and it's not just about one religion, Islam, but I'm sharing my experience from what we do. Where the concern on the rise of political Islam, Islam that was invoked under the name of God or in the name of Sharia, and then we know, any Muslims would know, that within the richness of Islamic jurisprudence, there are many schools of law. So which part of Sharia that you then claim as divine and you make it into codification of laws? So again, we ask the question, when it comes to the rise of religious extremism, there's always the tendency to look at the most conservative and most patriarchal interpretation of Sharia, which has some other options, actually, And in the name of Islam, the abuse in the name of Islam of saying that this is Sharia, nobody can question it, when it is actually factually very false. It is not true, because Islamic tradition between big imams, intelligent scholars in Islamic history have always been, their position has been, this is my opinion and I stand by it, but the other imam may be right, because Allahu Alam, because Allah knows best, So that is why Imam Malik, when Khalifa Mansur, there's one caliph who said, Imam Malik, I love your book Muwatta so much. I want to codify this so that the whole of Islamic empire becomes only one law. And he said, no, don't do that, because this book is my observation, my decision on my society. But other Muslims from within other societies may have different opinion, different adat, different culture. So do not ever just define Sharia as very narrow. Next. And then, yeah, so there are groups of scholars who then actually said or a Muslim then said that we need to push for this one Sharia and one nation state. But again, whose version or whose opinion of ulama that they are taking to actually enforce? And then of course it will lead to all the other discriminatories that I've said. Yeah, so there is a chance for progressiveness, yeah, and there is a chance also to look at religious extremism. Where do we want to go? Next. And then, of course, when you talk about Muslim women, the richness of, that's why I say history is very important in any religion, in any society. Muslim women have always been honored in Islam since day one. When Caliph Umar wanted to change something about mahar, about the dowry, yeah, so he was a caliph, he was the leader, he was the Amirul Mu'mineen, he was the leader of the Muslims. So he said, I want to change and to standardize the rate of mahar, of dowry. One woman stood up and said, how dare you change something that Quran has given us the right to determine? So the Caliph Umar did not say, oh, you woman, I'm the Caliph, I have, legitimacy to talk about changes. No, he said, the woman is correct and the Caliph is wrong. So women has always been honored. If you look in the Quran, the text, the sacred text itself, there's a lot of women who actually ask, the women who ask questions to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, but today, it's as if when women voice out for their rights that have been given within Islamic tradition, it's deemed as if they are Western agents. It's deemed, they are called as liberal. And suddenly liberal, which is in Quran as, ummatan wasatan, as the ummah or the people who are neither extreme here nor there, but now liberal has become a dirty word. Why? Secularism becomes bad, pluralism becomes bad. Why? Why do we allow religious extremism voice to define what Islam is when that is not Islam? Next. And the work of Sisters in Islam especially, and all other progressive, moderate scholars are actually saying that we need to engage with our faith. Our faith is very precious to us. And we do not want to allow people who say that there is, between creatures of God, in the opening speech, there's the equality of creatures of God, Adam and Eve, or, Christians and Muslims and Jews and Buddhists and Hindus. But why is it now we are saying that, there should be male superiority and then women, subjugation towards male? So there has to be an end to patriarchy and voice of extremism. And these are, some of the works that we do. Next. So the way forward towards countering religious extremism is definitely not from the West. It is definitely not from any other source but Islam, because Islam has provided us that justice and equality language, that was spoken in 7th century Arabia when medieval Europe wouldn't even think about. And then it also has to acknowledge, we stand by it. You have to acknowledge the change of society. If Imam Malik refused to codify his own book for the society in his time, what more? In 21st century, the shift has gone so much from 7th century Arabia, from 12th century, 18th, 15th century until today. And we also said that we have to honor each of our country, and in Malaysia, of course, the constitutional guarantees of all its citizens, equality, and also non-discrimination, and also international obligation. So next, how Sisters in Islam push to counter religious extremism, to counter those who monopolize issues that affect Muslim women especially, and as a whole, the Muslim society, is to actually look at the text and said, when God said that men can choose 2, 3, 4 wives, what did he say after that? He said, فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا, and if you fear that you cannot do justice, and marry only one. So the condition of justice, which was actually in 1984 Islamic family law, was very good. 5 very strict conditions, yeah, before it was amended, so, because scholars were trying to realize that al-adl, or justice, that Allah mentioned in the Quran. So is that a divine right for men? Or if you look at the whole verse, it was all about protection for orphans and widows. Next. So just last one. So we say that any version of Islamic law, any interpretation or any opinion that you take from the schools of law in Islam has to look at the needs of the society and have to ensure the maqasid Sharia, which is the objective of Sharia, which is to attain justice, yeah, and protection of those 5, and also to give solution to maslaha ummah, to the best interest of the people. And therefore, we do acknowledge that there are a lot of other voices calling for justice, calling for equality. Next. So Sister Islam initiated the global movement of Musawa to look at the Muslim family law and to say that equality and justice is within Islam. Next. So we say there is a verse, the last verse, that talk about the relationship between man and woman, yeah? And to see how beautiful it is, because God said that man and woman, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ, that they are protectors of one another, not one controlling the other. They protect one another, and they do good work, and so on and so forth. And so hopefully with the launch of Musawa, we will all call towards looking at laws that speak of justice and equality, and to say no to anything that does not move towards justice and equality. Thank you so much.
The passion of women. Let's give her another hand. Okay, there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of energy is needed to do that work. So we really appreciate your expression.